This is not a drill. This is not clickbait, and this is not speculation. What I'm about to tell you has been confirmed by multiple intelligence sources and verified satellite imagery, and it changes everything we thought we knew about the balance of power in the Middle East. And honestly, it should terrify every single American watching this right now. If you are just joining this channel, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what is unfolding right now is one of the most dangerous military developments we have seen in decades, and the mainstream media is barely covering it the way it deserves to be covered. So here is what happened. Russia, in what defense analysts are calling one of the most provocative arms deals in modern history, has just delivered its S-400 Triumph missile defense system to Iran, a deal reportedly worth over $900 million. And folks, this is not just some ordinary weapons transaction. This is a game-changing, region-destabilizing, power-shifting event that directly threatens American military assets, American servicemen and women, and American strategic interests across the entire Middle East theater. Now, let me break this down for you so you understand exactly why the Pentagon is losing sleep over this tonight. The S-400, known by NATO as the SA-21 Growler, is arguably the most advanced surface-to-air missile defense system on the planet right now. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that this system can track and engage up to 80 targets simultaneously. It has a detection range of over 370 miles, and it can shoot down everything from stealth fighter jets to cruise missiles to even some ballistic missile threats at altitudes reaching nearly 120,000 feet. Let that sink in for a second. 120,000 feet, that is well above the operational ceiling of most American combat aircraft, including some of our most advanced platforms. This means that Iran, a nation that has been designated as a state sponsor of terrorism by the United States government for over 4 decades, now possesses the ability to create what military strategists call an anti-access area denial bubble, or A2AD for short, over a massive swath of the Middle East. We are talking about a coverage zone that could potentially extend over the Strait of Hormuz, over large portions of the Persian Gulf, over Iraq, over parts of Saudi Arabia, and depending on where these batteries are positioned, potentially even threatening operations over the Arabian Sea. Now, I want you to think about what that means for a moment, because this is where it gets really personal for Americans. We have tens of thousands of American troops deployed across the Middle East right now. We have naval assets in the Persian Gulf. We have air bases in Qatar, in Bahrain, in the UAE, in Kuwait, and every single one of those installations, every single one of those ships, every single one of those aircraft just became significantly more vulnerable overnight. And here's the part that is really keeping defense officials up at night. Our 5th-generation stealth aircraft, the ones we spent hundreds of billions of dollars developing specifically to penetrate advanced air defense networks, may not be as invisible to the S-400 as we have been told. There has been an ongoing debate in the defense community for years about whether the S-400's advanced radar systems, particularly its 91N6E surveillance radar and its 92N6E engagement radar, have the capability to detect and track low observable stealth aircraft like the F-35 Lightning II and the F-22 Raptor. Now, the official Pentagon position has always been that our stealth technology maintains a decisive advantage, but behind closed doors, and I've spoken to people who have been in those rooms, the assessment is far less confident than what they tell the public. Multiple defense analysts and former military officials have raised serious concerns that the S-400's multi-band radar approach, which uses a combination of different frequency bands to build a composite picture of the airspace, could potentially detect stealth aircraft at reduced ranges, but still at ranges that would put our pilots in danger. And now that system, that capability, is sitting in the hands of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, an organization that the United States has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. an organization that has the blood of hundreds of American soldiers on its hands from decades of proxy warfare in Iraq and across the region. Now, let me take you back to how we got here, because the backstory is just as alarming as the headline. Russia and Iran have been deepening their military cooperation at a pace that has honestly caught a lot of Western intelligence agencies off guard. The relationship between Moscow and Tehran has transformed dramatically over the past few years, particularly since the conflict in Ukraine began, when Iran provided Russia with thousands of Shahed kamikaze drones that were used to devastating effect against Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. That drone deal opened the floodgates for a much deeper military partnership, a quid pro quo of sorts, where Iran provided Russia with the weapons it needed for its war in Ukraine. And in return, Russia agreed to provide Iran with the advanced military technology that Tehran had been desperately seeking for decades. And the crown jewel of that exchange, the thing Iran wanted more than anything else, was the S-400. Now, the deal had been rumored for months. There were reports circulating in defense circles as far back as last year that negotiations were underway. But the speed at which this delivery appears to have taken place has stunned the intelligence community. Satellite imagery analyzed by independent defense researchers shows what appear to be S-400 transporter erector launchers and associated radar systems at a military installation in central Iran. And the configuration is consistent with an operational or near operational deployment, meaning this is not just equipment sitting in crates waiting to be assembled. This system could potentially be combat ready within weeks, if it is not already. And here is something else you need to understand about why this is so dangerous. The S-400 does not just sit there passively waiting for a threat to appear. It is part of an integrated air defense network. And when you combine it with Iran's existing air defense capabilities, their indigenous Bavar 373 system, their upgraded Hawk batteries, their extensive network of early warning radars, you create a layered defense architecture that becomes exponentially more difficult to penetrate than any single system on its own. Military planners call this a defense in depth. And it means that any American aircraft attempting to operate in Iranian airspace or even in the airspace near Iran would face multiple overlapping threat rings, each one capable of engaging targets at different altitudes and ranges, creating what amounts to a wall of missiles that would be extraordinarily dangerous to fly through. And I want to be very clear about something here, because I think it is important for every American to understand the real-world implications of this if, God forbid, a conflict were to break out between the United States and Iran, whether directly or through some escalatory spiral involving proxies or miscalculation. The presence of the S-400 in Iran would fundamentally change the way the United States military would have to approach that conflict. The air superiority that we have enjoyed in every Middle Eastern conflict since the Gulf War in 1991, that assumption that American planes own the skies, that era may be coming to an end, and the costs of establishing air superiority in terms of time, resources, and most importantly, American lives, would be dramatically higher than anything we have faced since the Vietnam War. Think about what that means. We are talking about a potential scenario where American pilots would be flying into a threat environment more dangerous than anything they have trained for, where the margin for error is essentially zero, and where a single missile launch could bring down a $100 million aircraft and end the life of a highly trained American aviator. That is the reality we are now facing. And I think every American taxpayer, every military family, every citizen who cares about our national security deserves to know the truth about it. Now, if you are finding this information valuable, and I really hope you are, because this is the kind of analysis you are not going to get from the 30-second sound bites on cable news, I need you to do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone you think needs to hear this, because the more people who understand what is really going on, the better informed our national conversation will be, and that matters, it really does. So let us talk about the diplomatic dimension of this because the geopolitical implications are staggering. This arms deal represents a massive failure of American diplomatic efforts to isolate Iran militarily. For years, the cornerstone of U.S. strategy in the Middle East has been maintaining a qualitative military edge over Iran and ensuring that Tehran could never acquire the kind of advanced weapons systems that would allow it to challenge American military dominance in the region. The S-400 delivery shatters that strategy completely. It tells the world that Russia is willing to arm America's adversaries with its most advanced military technology, and it tells every other nation in the Middle East that the United States may no longer be able to guarantee the kind of security umbrella that has been the foundation of our alliance structure in the region for decades. Think about what this means for our allies. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Israel, every single one of these nations has relied on the implicit or explicit guarantee that the United States would be able to project overwhelming military power in the region if needed. And the S-400 in Iran calls that guarantee into question in a way that nothing else has. And you can bet that the diplomatic fallout from this is going to be enormous. We are already seeing reports of emergency consultations between Washington and its Gulf allies. There are rumors of an emergency session at NATO to discuss the implications. And behind the scenes, you can be absolutely certain that the intelligence community is running scenarios and war games to figure out how to deal with this new reality. But here is the thing that really worries me, and I want to be honest with you about this because I think you deserve honesty. I am not sure we have a good answer right now. The Pentagon has been developing technologies and tactics to counter the S-400 for years. Things like electronic warfare capabilities, advanced stealth coatings, standoff weapons that can be launched from outside the S-400's engagement envelope. But the truth is that none of these solutions have been tested in a real-world combat scenario against an actual S-400 system. And there is a very real possibility that when theory meets reality, the results could be different from what the simulations predict. And let me tell you about another dimension of this that is not getting nearly enough attention: the intelligence implications. One of the biggest concerns in the defense community right now is not just the S-400 hardware itself, but the possibility that Russia could share radar data and electronic intelligence with Iran about American aircraft signatures. You see, every time an American stealth aircraft operates near a Russian S-400 system anywhere in the world, whether in Syria, whether near the Baltic states, whether in any other theater, that system is collecting data about the radar cross-section and electromagnetic emissions of our most advanced aircraft. If Russia shares that data with Iran, it could potentially allow Iran to tune its S-400 systems specifically to detect and engage American stealth aircraft, effectively creating a custom-tailored threat that is optimized to defeat the specific capabilities that we rely on for air superiority. That is a nightmare scenario for the Air Force and the Navy, and it is one that intelligence officials are taking very, very seriously right now. Now, I also want to talk about the economic implications because this affects every single American, not just those in the military. The Strait of Hormuz, which is the narrow waterway between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula, is the most important oil choke point in the entire world. Roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through that strait every single day, and Iran's ability to threaten that waterway just increased dramatically with the S-400. If Iran can create an effective anti-access bubble over the strait using the S-400 in combination with its anti-ship missiles, its naval mines, and its fast attack boats, the potential for an oil crisis that would make the 1973 embargo look mild is very real. We are talking about gas prices that could spike to levels we have never seen before. We are talking about economic disruption that would ripple through every sector of the American economy. And we are talking about a scenario where a hostile regime has its finger on the switch of the global energy supply and now has the advanced military technology to back up its threats. And this brings me to perhaps the most troubling question of all. What is the United States going to do about it? Because right now the options are not great, and I think the American people need to hear that honest assessment. A military strike to destroy the S-400 systems before they become fully operational is theoretically possible, but it would be an act of war against Iran and could trigger a regional conflict with catastrophic consequences. Diplomatic pressure on Russia has proven largely ineffective, especially given the current state of U.S.-Russia relations. Sanctions, which have been the go-to tool for decades, have clearly failed to prevent this exact scenario from happening. And simply accepting the new status quo means accepting a fundamental shift in the balance of power that puts American forces and American interests at greater risk than they have been in decades. Some defense analysts are suggesting that the answer lies in accelerating the deployment of our own advanced capabilities. Next-generation electronic warfare systems, hypersonic weapons that can strike from outside the S-400's engagement zone, and potentially even the deployment of directed energy weapons that are still in the experimental phase. But all of these solutions are years away from being operational in the numbers needed to make a real difference. And in the meantime, the S-400 is in Iran right now, today, and the threat it poses is immediate and real. I have been covering defense and geopolitical issues for a long time, and I can tell you that the level of concern I am hearing from my contacts in the military and intelligence community about this development is unlike anything I have seen in recent memory. This is not just another arms deal. This is not just another provocative move by Russia. This is a fundamental and potentially irreversible shift in the military landscape of the most volatile region on Earth, and it directly impacts the safety and security of every American, whether you are a service member deployed overseas, a military family waiting at home, or a citizen who simply wants to know that your country has the capability to protect its interests and its people. And the silence from some corners of the political establishment on this issue is, frankly, deafening. Where are the congressional hearings? Where is the urgent national security briefing to the American people? Where is the clear, coherent strategy to address what is arguably the most significant military development in the Middle East since the fall of Saddam Hussein? These are the questions we should all be asking, and these are the questions that I am going to continue pushing for answers on this channel because I believe the American people deserve to know what is really happening and what it means for their safety and their future. Now, I want to leave you with this thought because I think it is important to put this in perspective. Throughout history, the moments that changed the trajectory of global power were not always the big dramatic events that made the front pages. Sometimes they were the quiet deliveries, the secret deals, the behind-the-scenes transfers of technology that shifted the balance of power in ways that only became apparent later. The delivery of the S-400 to Iran may very well be one of those moments, a turning point that historians will look back on as the moment when the rules of the game in the Middle East changed forever. And I want to make sure that when that history is written, the American people were not caught off guard, that they were informed, that they understood what was happening and what was at stake. So that is where we stand tonight. A $900 million Russian missile system is now on Iranian soil. The most advanced air defense weapon ever exported to a U.S. adversary is being set up and prepared for operation. And the implications for American military power, American security, and American lives are profound and deeply concerning. I want to thank every single one of you for watching this all the way through. This is the kind of deep analysis that takes time and effort to put together. And if you found it valuable, the single best thing you can do is subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update, and share this video, because every single share helps get this critical information out to more Americans who need to hear it. I will be back very soon with more updates as this situation develops, because I can tell you right now, this story is far from over. In fact, it may just be the beginning. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and God bless the men and women in uniform who are standing watch tonight in a world that just got a whole lot more dangerous. I will see you in the next one.